When developing a trading system, the step of modifying the rules and re-optimizing to find the best set of parameters and the most robust set of parameters is the most time-consuming part. In our blog on TradersStudio.com, I discussed development of my new bond system, which was released in 2013. I had to modify the bond system since we now have to assume that bonds are a two-way market. We no longer have the strong upward bias. That process took me much less time using TraderStudio Turbo, because TraderStudio Turbo is 8 to 10 times faster than TraderStudio Pro. We'll now show how the genetic optimizer can save even more time when developing a trading system. Let's first look at the finished results of that bond system that I developed. We made $275,000, 24K drawdown, 55% winning trades. $199,000 on the long side, $75,000 on the short side. Let's look at our parameters. These parameters took me a while to develop because I had to do small optimizations. I could not optimize all the parameters at once. And then take the first two, take 2 through 4 and optimize, and do that type of process, because optimizing across a large range of values in one fell swoop was just not feasible. So let's now run the optimizer. We see we go from 2 to 30 steps of 2 for all 3 moving averages that are part of the intermarket. The filter length is from 5 to 120 in steps of 5, and the offset is from 0.1 to 1 in steps of 0.1. Okay, you can see here that it took quite a while for it to process and begin to even to start to run the optimization. About 10 or 12 minutes. And the reason for that is that we have over 500,000 combinations. And our estimated time as this thing's beginning to set up is just going up and up. Over 50 hours right now. So we'll let this run for a little bit so we can get a realistic time estimate. And we can see we're somewhere in the 50 to 55 hour range for our estimate, with over half a million combinations. Now this is brute force. We'll find the best set of parameters, but that's over 2 days of constant optimization. And what's amazing though is that would have been 16 days of constant optimization, running one optimization for 16 days if we still had TraderStudio Pro. We reduced it to 2.5 days with TraderStudio Turbo. And we have now interrupted our brute force optimization, which was over 500,000 trials. The estimate had sneaked up to 58 hours by the time we'd interrupted it. Let's see how easy this is to do using the genetic optimizer and how much less time it would take. You remember our original results were about $275,000 on the system with a $24,000 drawdown. So we're going to run the GA and see how close to those kind of results we can get. And those results were done with 2 or 3 days of my work, since I did not want to run for 20 straight hours. So it's simple to run the genetic optimizer. It's add-ins, GA, optimize session, run. So we simply can pick it from the list. Now, when we run a GA, there are 2 very important sets of parameters. The first is the population size. That is the group of parameters that we're going to use that is actually going to be processed by the genetic algorithm to come up with better sets of parameters. The number of generations are how many times we're going to look at all the parameters in a set, get their results, and then use the genetic optimizer to figure out how to improve them using the processes of crossover and mutation. And this information is readily available. There's information on this in our manual as well as all over the web on how a genetic algorithm works. So we're going to select a population size of 200, meaning we're going to have 200 sets of parameters that we're using as our templates that we're going to try to improve. We're going to run through those and do our improving steps using the genetic algorithm 200 times. So the way of thinking about this is that in essence, we're going to take 200 population size and 200 generations, or we'd multiply those together and get 4,000. So in essence, the genetic algorithm is doing about 4,000 tests to come up with the best set of parameters it can, as opposed to the 500,000 tests. So let's see how close we come to acceptable results doing less than 1% of the number of trials. Now there's an advanced feature here, and the advanced feature lets us pick what our fitness function is, which can be net profit divided by drawdown, or a custom function. Then there's this crossover rate and mutation rate. These are explained in the manual, or a little bit beyond the scope of this video. So now we're going to continue here. So now we're going to go through our parameters, and we're going to pick the same range of parameters we did when we did our optimization. Now, when we did our optimization to come up with that 500,000 sets of parameters, we used a step size of 2. The genetic algorithm on integer parameters can use a step size of 1 because it is using the algorithm to find the step size. So we can find sets of combinations that our brute force optimization could not even find. So we're going to go from 2 to 30 for this first set of parameters, 2 to 30, and 2 to 30 for the 3 sets of intermarket parameters. Our filter length, we used 100 to begin with, so we're going to choose from 30 to 130, and that's an integer. Now our offset was 0.5, so we're going to choose from 0.1 to 1 and make it real. We're going to hit end. Now the genetic optimizer, the first thing it does is runs okay, we can see that it's estimating a time of 3 hours and 50 minutes. Now one thing I'll tell you, the genetic optimizer is very smart. If it's already tested a set of parameters, it will not retest it. So this estimate will probably shrink over time and be a little bit less than that 3 hours and 50 minutes. So we're going to complete our 200 generations, and we'll see what kind of results we get. This is going to take quite a while, so we'll come back in a bit. Okay, so we're back here, and as you can see, the elapsed time is about a little less than an hour, 55 minutes. And we're continuing here 2 more cycles, and it's going to just continue. So the estimated time total is going to be 59 minutes, so another 4 minutes we will be done here. And actually it's done now. So let's look. If you remember, we originally had $275,000 with a $24,000 drawdown. The genetic optimizer found a $246,000 solution. If we want to run it, we can run it like this. Just hit the run button. Which doesn't sound like as much money. It isn't. But the drawdown is only $14K. So in actuality, the genetic optimizer in less than an hour found a much better system than brute force was going to take 58 hours to do. And originally we thought the genetic optimizer was going to take almost 4 hours. It took a lot less time than that. And I actually spent 3 days working on a new version of the system to find that 275-24 combination. So the genetic optimizer did better than I did in 3 days. So that shows you the power of this tool. We went from, with TraderStudio Pro, something that would have taken 16 days to do, to with TraderStudio Turbo and My Intelligent, a reasonable solution that only took me 3 days, to something that only took an hour using TraderStudio Turbo and TraderStudio Turbo's genetic optimizer.